What's up, everyone? Kriddle here, and we're going to be making a Monster Hunter Wilds weapon tier list. This is going to be an opinion, mostly for fun, but going over what I felt were some of the best weapons. Were they fun to me? It's not going to be necessarily be which ones were the fastest killing, which ones did the most damage. Although that is going to be a factor. It's going to be more: did I have fun using it? Was it an enjoyable weapon? And did it get the job done from what I wanted to do? So with that all out of the way, I don't want anybody coming in and being like, "What, that weapon should be listed higher or lower." I don't care. The point is, did I have fun with it, and did it do what I wanted to? So let's start out with the longsword over here. The longsword, I actually had a lot of fun with this weapon. It felt really good to use. It was a fast weapon to use, and I loved building up the combos and then unleashing that with your helm splitter breaker, whatever, and then doing all the flurry of attacks and seeing all the numbers pop up. That was a lot of fun to me, and it wasn't too challenging. I also felt like it did a decent job at taking down monsters. I think that the damage could be increased a little bit on it. And if it does get increased, it could easily take this up to S tier for me, but we're going to throw it up here into A tier. It was a good weapon. It was fun to use, and it felt really good when you got the hang of it and got those combos rolling. Next up, we have the Charge Blade. All right, so the Charge Blade, this is where it's going to get to that point where people are going to be like, that should be ranked higher or whatever. We're going to throw Charge Blade in here at a B tier weapon. The reason for that is because I think this is a very, very good weapon, but I think it's way, 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 way too technical. You have to build up so much to get to the point where you are able to do damage. You have to build up your shield. You have to get the buff for the actual axe part. You got to do all these different things, and then finally you can build up to that. Now, once you build up to that and that chainsaw attack, it feels phenomenal. You're just coming down on a monster, the chain's spinning, and you're just like going straight through the monster. It's a lot of fun. I really, really, really enjoyed it. But getting to that point was just so tedious. It was not fun for me, at least. Maybe if you can get really good at this weapon and you can get that rolling, I guess, and be able to build up all those things fairly easily, then it's not too bad. But for me, it was too much of a chore to get to that point to finally release the damage. Hammer. Hammer for me was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's a very basic weapon though. So for Hammer, I felt like it was just, bash, 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 whirl around, bash, 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 whirl around. And that was pretty much the Hammer. Once you get that flow going, it was a very, very easy weapon to use. I am going to throw this up here though as an A tier weapon. I would go with S tier again if it was a little bit more fun to use, but I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And that to me just wasn't as fun, but it did feel good bashing the monster in the head, stunning them. And another thing I really liked about the hammer is it made a lot of wounds, which to me is a lot of fun because I love to be able to use those wounds. So that's why we're putting it up here into A tier. I would put this up into S tier if I felt like it was just a little bit more fun to use. It could potentially go to S tier for some people. Sword and shield. This one I'm going to put up here into A tier as well. The reason for that, I do like the sword and shield. It's a very combo heavy weapon. You're constantly doing combos, and you're able to mount the monster very easily with this. And you can also do defensive attacks. So you have the guard, you have the perfect guard, you have those kind of things that you can do. So you can do a lot with this weapon. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and throw it up into S tier for me. The reason for that is because it doesn't take much to learn this weapon, and it gets the job done, and you can really do everything with it. So, like the mounting, you can cause a lot of wounds to happen. And then you can mount the monster. It's just fun, right? It's just a fun weapon, and it's easy, and you can pretty much just spam buttons. You can just button mash and get the job done. It takes down monsters fairly quickly and fairly easily. So I really, really like that. The light bow gun. Unfortunately for me, I felt like the light bow gun was way down here. There's very little combos that you can do with it. At least I felt like the only thing that was good about the light bow gun was that you could buff your friends or heal your friends using certain types of ammo. But I didn't feel like it was just not fun to me for a ranged weapon. You're just kind of standing back and shooting, and then you're switching to your switch type, whatever it's called. I forget off the top of my head. And then you're shooting a little bit more, then you're switching back and you're building that back up, and then you're switching. And that was really all it was to it, is just shoot monster, switch to different mode, shoot monster, switch back. So to me, it wasn't really that great. I also just didn't feel like it took down monsters very fast. Like it felt clunky to me to be able to take a monster and defeat it in solo runs. It might be a little bit better in group play since you can heal and buff your party, but for me, it kind of fell flat. Switch axe. So the switch axe, this one I had a lot of fun with. Once I got rolling with it, I actually really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to put it up here at S tier. The reason for that is it has your ability to offset and counter depending on if you're in axe mode or sword mode. But that's not the reason that I really, really liked it. What I liked about it is once you get that rotation going, you can switch from axe to sword and do some devastating hits. Once you get that full charge on your sword, you power it up. And when you hit with it, it just felt really good. Everything explodes. The monster gets knocked down or knocked back, and it's just a lot of fun to use. And the combo I didn't feel like was too difficult to actually get rolling. So I'm going to put that one up in S tier. Strong weapon, not too easy or not too difficult to use, and just felt good using it. So when the impact, and a lot of people I think talk about the impact of weapons when they hit an enemy, it just can you feel that impact? And I know exactly what you mean by that. Some people may not, but when you do hit an enemy with a weapon like that, it just feels really good. The hammer, I think, could use a little bit more of that impact. I feel like, a lot of times it's just bonk, bonk. It feels almost like a toy hammer. So if they were to add a little bit of impact to that, I think it might be a little bit better. And that was kind of why, I would go between S and A tier with that. But the switch axe, when you get that final combo going off and it's the full release, whatever it's called, it was amazing. Just explosions happening, lots of damage happening. The monster just, could feel it. It was a lot of fun to use. The bow. The bow is absolutely going to go up here in S tier. We're going to actually put it in the first spot of S tier. This was by far the biggest surprise to me as far as weapons and, did I have fun? I have never played ranged weapons in previous Monster Hunter games. I've picked them up and I've tried them a little bit, but I've never actually focused on them and played them. In this game, I actually did spend several hours on the bow, trying to get to understand it, using it, and I love how the bow is interactive. It's way more interactive now than it used to be. So you're going to constantly be dodging and moving and shifting your character around. That's how you're going to maintain your charge. Once you get that charge up, you have combos that you can do from your regular shot to your quick shot, or power volley, whatever that one was called. And you can do these back to back to back while you're jumping around and moving. And then also your coatings now are all integrated into the bow itself, rather than having to choose different types of ammo and that sort of thing. You actually have to activate your coating. You get 8 shots with it, and then you have to do whatever it is that you do and activate it again. I really, really like that. And then it felt good using it as well. I don't feel like there was a lot of impact to it, but again, it's a bow. It should just be boom, 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 hitting quick shots. I just really enjoyed the bow gameplay. Another thing that I really, really liked about it was the wounds. Whenever you get wounds on the enemy, you hold down R2, whatever it was, L2, and then you would charge up with R1, and it would target every single wound, and it would just shoot out like so many arrows depending on how many wounds there were. It was like 3 or 5 arrows per wound. So if you had, 6 or so wounds on the monster, a couple on the back, couple on the legs, the head, you could have a lot of different wounds. It would just send out so many arrows, and then it would jump back and then do it again. And it just felt amazing. I really, really, really liked the bow. Lance. Lance is kind of a mixed bag for me because Lance is a very defensive weapon. And in this kind of game, I like to play very offensively. So that moves it down a little bit for me. So it's more of a reactionary weapon. But I would still put Lance up here a little bit higher because it's a very, very good weapon. The problem is with the Lance is that you're going to be blocking, and then you have 2 different types of guards, which I didn't really enjoy. It felt really wonky to me. So you have the regular guard, which you can do the perfect guard with, and then you have the power guard, which you can then use to counterattack with. And I felt you could use one or the other, but it was very hard, if not impossible. I'm not really 100% sure how to explain that, to do a perfect power guard. I never got any dialogue saying perfect power guard, which would be hitting R2 and circle kind of all at the same time. But I could easily get perfect guards by just hitting R2 right before the monster hits. But to do a power guard, you have to hold down R2 and then hit circle. So not 100% sure how that worked. I found myself to hold down R2 right before they hit me, hit circle to go into the power guard so I wasn't draining a lot of stamina, and then following them up with that follow-up attack, which did a decent amount of damage, and then following that up with its normal jab, jab, jab combo. So, it was pretty much like a triangle, 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 or Y, 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 depending on your controller that you're using. But it was like jab, jab, and then up jab, or jab, jab, straight jab, or, up jab, and then straight. That was pretty much it. It was just kind of 3 jabs in a row, depending on where the monster was positioned. And that was basically the entire gameplay. So it was block, and then a bunch of jabs, and then block, and then a bunch of jabs. Did it get the job done? Yes, but I think some of the other weapons would take down monsters quite a bit faster because you don't have to be so reactionary with it. I feel like the Lance is very, very, very reactionary. Now, if you like to be a defensive player and you want to be reactionary, the Lance is absolutely the weapon for you. You can wait. It's kind of like a patience weapon, right? You're going to wait for the monster to come into you, and then you're just going to devastate it and destroy it. Every time that it goes to attack you, you're going to counterattack it. Dual blades. Dual blades, I'm going to put up here. Oh man, this is tough for me. Is S tier or A tier? I'm going to put it down in A tier because I feel like the dual blades kill speed wasn't as fast as it could be. Although I think once we get into the game, we can start making new types of dual blades. We can start adding in different types of elements. We didn't have all these choices with the beta. I think that's going to make it a much, much better weapon, and probably put it up into S tier because we really don't know how the element build up and everything is going to end up working fully. We can only base that off of previous games, and in previous games, a lot of the fast-hitting weapons like dual blades would build up that element very, very quickly. So I think that dual blades is in a pretty good place. I loved being in demon or archdemon mode and just spamming attacks. And then once I figured out that you can dodge attacks, that's really what opened it up for me. So I would have put this down at B tier, but then when I learned that you can do a perfect dodge, and when you do a perfect dodge, you get a 10-second buff that puts you into like super archdemon mode. And it turns your character blue with like a red shade to it. It's kind of weird. Anyway, your character starts glowing more and just moves even faster. So you have regular mode, which is fast attacks. You have demon mode, which is like super fast attacks. And then you have like this demon mode with the dodge buff that just is like, what the heck is going on? Your character moves so quickly, and all you have to really do is spam triangle and circle or Y and B, and you're just going to sit there and just keep spinning nonstop, doing all these little hits, and it just felt really, really good. And then when you get on the back of a monster, when you hit a wound, the way that the dual blade works, especially on, I forget the name of the monster, the long worm looking one, you basically hit the monster and then you roll down its back, you like just and devastate it. It's just so much fun once you get the dual blades rolling. I also added in the armor that allowed you to have the stamina 3 thing where you build up your stamina like 30% faster. That really helped out with dual blades because you're burning up your stamina by staying into arc demon mode or demon mode and then dodging quite often to get that buff. So you're using up quite a bit of stamina. So once you put on that armor to get your stamina back faster, you're in the fight more, and it felt really, really good to use that weapon. The great sword. So the great sword, I'm also going to put up here into I'm going to put it up into S tier. Honestly, it felt amazing. The reason I really liked the great sword though was because it was the easiest to do an offset attack with, and then you could counter that up with a devastating true charge thing, and it was awesome. So basically, with the great sword is you can block with it, so you can guard, you can perfect guard, which are nice. You could also do an offset attack, and like I said, it's the easiest to do the offset attack with. But then if you just go full offensive and you're just swinging your weapon, you're doing all these charge attacks. So you're doing like a charge slash and then a strong charge slash, and then you're doing the true charge. It's just you can build that up, and once you get the hang of it and the roll with it, you're able to actually get that true charge slash over and over and over very, very easily and just decimate monsters with it. I had a lot of fun playing with the great sword because it's offensive, it's defensive, and it was fairly easy to use. So I would throw that up there for a beginner weapon for sure. Now, it's not 100% beginner. You do have to kind of learn a few little nuances, but for the most part, it's very, very easy to use. Heavy bowgun. Again, I'm going to put this one way down here at C tier because I felt like the heavy and light bowguns were just kind of boring. It was just, there weren't enough combos to them. The heavy bowgun, one thing I did like about it is that you could guard with this one. Just like the great sword, you had the auto guard, you had guard. Like the great sword doesn't have auto guard, but this one has auto guard on it. And you could guard, you get the perfect guard. You could also do the offset attacks. Now, the offset attack on this though, and one of the reasons I put it so low is because the offset attack is so difficult to use. You have to basically be in the correct stance and then charge up the offset attack and then have the monster hit you at the right time to release it. So it just felt like too much effort to get that in there. Whereas the great sword, monsters coming at you, you can just pretty much go, boom, here we go, offset attack. So that's why I like that. The guard aspect of it, I'm not a huge guard player when it comes to Monster Hunter. That's why I don't have the lance up a little bit higher. I do have the sword and shield up here because, it has that guard aspect to it, but it's also a very fast weapon. So as you can see, it kind of moves down the list based on guard. The only one that, has the guard that I really liked would be the great sword. And then we're going to get to the charge blade is also over here. So anyway, not a huge fan of guard other than the great sword. But anyway, we're talking about the heavy bowgun, and I just didn't like that you're just basically shooting. I did like the Gatling gun part of it where you can switch modes and then just unload with a Gatling gun. That was kind of fun. But other than that, I just didn't feel like the weapon did a lot for me. Okay, so next up is the insect glaive. I think this one is going to be probably the most controversial weapon in my entire tier list. A lot of people would put it down here at D because in previous Monster Hunter games, the way that the insect glaive worked, some people would probably put it a little bit higher. I don't think anyone would put it into S tier, and I'm not going to either. We're going to drop it down here into A tier. The reason for that is because the insect glaive is very similar to what it was in previous games. I actually mained insect glaive a little bit. I did insect glaive and dual blades a lot, I would say. Those two weapons I mained in Monster Hunter World. I think that was the one that I was playing when I mained those. And I really enjoyed it because I like the fast attacks. Insect glaive back then in those previous games, you would be able to go up in the air and bounce around like 3 times, touch the ground, jump right back up and bounce around 3 times. You were constantly spinning and doing all sorts of crazy acrobatic stuff. And to me, it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, with this game, they have completely revamped the insect glaive, and you can no longer stay up in the air nearly indefinitely and just bounce from monster to monster and, all that kind of stuff. They've kind of removed that. You can still vault up in the air, you can still leap in a direction, and you can still attack in a direction and do the spinning attack if you have all 3 buffs. But right after that spinning attack, you have to either touch the ground or do another attack, which in this case is holding down circle and then releasing it at the right time. And your character will do this like dive bomb attack. And then you can follow that up with the big attack, which is L2 and circle, I believe, where your character then does this crazy spin, burns all of its buffs, and does a ton of damage to the monster. Now, when I first figured this out, I was like, okay, that's cool. However, you use up all of your ability or all of your buffs. So I would have put this down here at probably C tier in that situation, because you are missing so many buffs at that point. You got to then build up your buffs again just to get this one attack off. Then I learned a couple of different things about the insect glaive, which are different than previous Monster Hunter games. One of them being that the wound system, which is all brand new to this Monster Hunter game, I believe. I don't think I've ever seen it in a previous one. So the wound system, if you actually use the wound, you hit L2 and R1 to do the wound jab or whatever. I can't remember the name of focus attack, a focus strike. Whenever you do that, you gain all 3 of those buffs back instantly, and then you can go back into your combo. So the goal here is to do a bunch of attacks, cause wounds on the monster, hit that wound, hit one of the wounds. You don't want to break them all. Some of these weapons hit every single wound, especially like the bow. Whenever you use that, it tries to hit every single wound on the monster, and it does a lot of damage, and it's a lot of fun. But with the insect glaive, you want to just have one wound, and then you want to use that wound to get all your buffs, and then use those buffs to create one more wound, and that is kind of the gameplay loop that I found to be a lot of fun with it. Also, you can now take your insect, your kinsect, and shoot it through the monster, getting up to 3 buffs at one time. So you could potentially get the red, white, and orange buffs all in one, pull it back to your monster, and continue going. I didn't realize it took me a couple hours of playing it before I was like, oh, wait, you can actually hold down the triangle button and it shoots your kinsect through the monster and it gets buffs all the way through it. That took me a minute to figure out, and once I did figure it out, it really helped out, and that's what puts it up into A tier. I don't want to put it into S tier because of that thought of what could have been if we were able to bounce around like we could in previous Monster Hunter games. I really like that. So if we could bounce 2 or 3 times and then do the dive and come back up and then bounce 2 or 3 times and get that loop going, I think it would definitely be an S tier. Again, it's also going to come down to the elements that you can put onto the Kinsect glaive and how those are going to build up, much like the dual blades. That might move it up into an S tier weapon for me, but for right now, it is A tier. The gun lance. Gun lance was boring. I'm going to put down here D. Honestly, I didn't enjoy it at all. Well, no, there is one thing I did like about the gun lance. There was one thing I did like, and that was when you jab them and then you can actually unload all of your ammo at once. So basically holding down that circle button and you can like jab a couple of times and then you just like, and you just release a bunch of bullets at once, kind of shotgun style. That was actually a lot of fun. But I just didn't feel like the gun lance did much for me. I don't know why. I guess everything with gun in the name just has a sour taste in my mouth, but I did not have fun with it. It does have the guard ability. And perfect guard, all that kind of stuff. I just didn't find myself ever using it on the gun lance. Maybe that was the problem with it. Maybe I should have tried to use it a little bit more and it would have been a little bit more reactive like the lance is. But that's where I'm at with the gun lance. I just did not feel it was a lot of fun to me, just except for that one shot, the shotgun kind of build up and then just boom, I don't know how to explain it, but that was kind of cool. Other than that, though, I just, last but not least is going to be the hunting horn. And I like where they are with the hunting horn. We're going to put it up in, I don't know if I want to put an S tier or A tier, though, to be honest. I feel like we're going to go A tier, and there's one specific reason for A tier, and that's going to be the offset melody. Everything else about the hunting horn, though, is a lot of fun. I like building up the notes. I really like the echo that you can put down on the ground, which gives everybody buffs. That's partly why I want to put it up into S tier, especially when you're grouping with people. You can put down those echo things everywhere, and everybody can kind of stand in it, move a little bit faster. You can buff everybody's attack speed and things like that. It's really, really good for that. But when it comes to the offset attack on here, you have to build up that offset attack. And then when you actually use the offset attack, at least in my experience, it was more of a counter attack. It dodged the ability and then it came back and it was like, boop. You have this giant horn and you would just kind of go boop on the monster. And it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like, hey, I dodged an attack that you just did. You're kind of, the monster is a little bit off balance at that point, and I'm coming with this giant horn and I'm smacking you in the face. That should be a lot more devastating, in my opinion. If you can get that offset melody, actually get it off, because you have to build it up and then also have the monster attack you and then hit R2, triangle, and circle all at the same time, because if you just tap R2, that's going to mess you up. If you just tap circle or triangle, that's going to mess you up. If you just hit circle and triangle at the same time, that's going to mess. You have to hit all three of those buttons at the same time while having the offset melody triggered. It was like, how am I ever going to use this? And then when you do use it, it was just kind of like, I don't know how to explain that one, but that's, to me, what is going to drop it down into A tier, is literally just the offset melody not being as fun as it possibly could be. Other than that, though, I think the hunting horn is a fantastic weapon, especially in group play. I think if you're playing with a group of friends and you want to all play different weapons, somebody should be playing the hunting horn, absolutely. And it'll benefit your entire group. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. This is my tier list. Again, 100% based on my opinion and how much fun I had using the weapons. There's a little bit of, these weapons are probably going to be good for everybody. Like the bow, for example, I think most people would agree with this. It is just by far one of the best weapons in the game right now. And it's easy to use, does tons of damage, and it feels good every time you use it. Other than that, though, these are going to be all in whatever weird order based on how much fun I had. Anyway, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, I see you in the game. Come on over to my Twitch channel where I do stream every single day. We'll be playing a lot of Monster Hunter Wilds when it releases February 28th. And hopefully, we're going to be making some more content between now and then as they release more information. And hopefully, see you in the next one. Bye!